This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci fi show where things could get totally radical. Now, today, I will be welcoming Rex Steven Sikes. He played Rodney, the nerd, in the 1976 horror cult classic Massacre at Central High, and it's celebrating its 45th anniversary today. This was like, a pre-Columbine, school murder, preschooling murder scenario movie. This was very bold and groundbreaking for its time. And we're going to talk about the movie today. I just cannot wait. It's going to be great. Also, too, we're going to be talking about other stuff he did. He was also in Raid in Entebbe. He was a production manager and assistant editor on the blaxploitation movie Black Fist, and he was also in the Coming Attractions movie spoof Flicks. And he's also does public speaking, and he does writing, producing, directing, and it's going to be great to talk to him today. I hope those other movies are accurate. We all know how inaccurate IMDb can be. But I think overall it's going to be a great conversation today. So yeah, here is my interview with Rex Steven Sikes. Good afternoon, Rex. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yes. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. And yourself? Thank you for having me, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I'm doing pretty good. I mean, we're having some fires up here and some power problems and stuff. But other than that, I'm great.
And you're in an area where it's safe?
Somewhat, yes. We've been near a lot of them the last 4 years we've been up here, but other than that, we're okay.
Well, that's good. A friend of mine lived in Calabasas, and they had, fires like literally atop the ridge right behind their house. I mean, you can leave the back of their house and climb up, and fires were right on the other side. Somehow, everybody managed to put it out before it crossed over, so they and everyone else in that area were very, very lucky.
Yeah. This is such a great honor for me, too. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Well, thank you. I'm outdoors. I'm out back. I just put my dogs in the house. They may bark to come back outside. I hope you can hear me okay, and it's a great honor for me to be here with you.
Oh, yes, I can hear you just fine. And yeah, I hear animals in the background all the time, so not to worry.
Cool.
So going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on in your childhood?
My parents put me in dancing and acrobatic classes when I was about 3 years old. And when I was 4, they put me in acting classes. And, it was an amateur class. It wasn't, they weren't trying to make me a child actor or a child dancer. They just wanted me to be well-rounded, know the arts and have experiences that way with little hope that I would ever, be interested in it. But
Right.
But I was interested in it. I don't know that had anything to do with it. What I did was on Saturday afternoons, I'd watch movies with my mom in the afternoon. I'd either sit on her lap or next to her, and we'd watch the Marx Brothers and, whatever they were showing on TV at the time, as well as, when I ultimately went to movies. And in grade school, every Saturday they would have afternoon matinees, and they'd show a newsreel and a trailer and a cartoon and a serial and then a double feature, all for like about 35 cents. But it was watching the movies with my mom, watching the Marx Brothers Duck Soup. I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, so. Duck Soup is a great movie. That I like.
Right.
A lot of people like those early Paramount ones the best, other than the MGM ones. I think they're all great. The MGM ones are a little bit different and they were a little bit older, but the Paramount ones are great.
Absolutely. I agree. But it's an interesting thing because about the time I was 6 or 7, I had also been raised Catholic. I wanted to be a mystic. I wanted to be a priest. I felt this other calling as well. So I wanted to act. The 3 things I wanted to do in my life would be like James Bond, be a priest or a mystic of some sort, have some magical connection with the universe, and act. Well, I fulfilled 2 of those in some ways. I haven't been James Bond. Okay?
Yeah.
But I also realized that James Bond in the movies was a very different life than the actual life of those kinds of people, so I was happy not to fulfill that.
Yeah. So you began acting professionally really young, right?
Well, no, professionally I started about 18, 19, is when I joined SAG, somewhere in there. Prior to that, I did non-union stuff. Prior to that, I did, what everybody typically does, and now especially, we made movies in the backyard. We played different characters. We did animation in the sandbox and things like that with Super 8. And then later, some 8mm and Super 8, and then eventually 16mm, but that was always very costly. So I joined SAG, when I was, I think, 19, I think.
Yeah. Did you study acting out there?
Oh, where?
In Los Angeles?
Oh, yes, of course. I have studied with so many people. I was fortunate to study with Uta Hagen a little bit, Estelle Harmon, Stella Adler, Eric Forrest, Strasberg, and not him personally necessarily so much, although he would visit. Somebody else, and there's a few that I don't even remember who they were. They were like out in the tail end of the valley, and we did video workshops. I even did a movie. They cast me in a movie, or there was the opportunity. I did something. I don't even know what it was. I've never seen it. I've never put it on a resume or anything, so I couldn't tell you. But Lillian Chauvin was one of my primary acting coaches, and she passed away, I think, around 2008 or 9, but she was very pivotal in my approach to acting. She was a marvelous woman. I first started studying with her when in 1974, I think, when I was a kid, 18, something like that. And I continued for 10 straight years. I worked for her. I taught the kids classes with her and some of the adult classes then, and I taught for her at USC the acting for camera and directing for camera over at USC. But she was amazing. And then Eric Morris, if you're aware of him, he was an actor and written a bunch of books. He was a friend of mine. He was a coffee buddy at Schwab's, where we all hung out. If it wasn't Schwab's, it was Nate Nal's or Jerry's or any number of places.
Of course.
Arts Deli, things like that. But at any rate, at Schwab's, and Eric and I were friends. And at some point, like maybe 1979, I said, Eric, I forgot the other teachers I studied with. Marty, oh my God.
Marty.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've known him for years, and we used to also have breakfast. I can't think of Dracula in the Edmund movie. His daughter is someone I know, and has been on my show. Juliet, she was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Christy Swanson?
Yeah. Huh?
Christy Swanson?
No, Christy's a friend, but no, Martin Landau. Jeez.
Oh, Landau.
Martin Landau, and then who's the other guy? It was at the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
Milton Casellas?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Eric Morris, I said I want to come into your class. He said, great, let's put you in the advanced class. I said, no. Put me in your beginner class, and then turn me a new one. Just break me down, take all my bad habits. And he was more than obliging at one point. He said, you sure you want to do this? I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, okay. And it was brutal in those days. So about 10 or 15 years ago, Eric and I got together. We had dinner, and he's still writing. I mean, he's a great guy. I love him. And he said, I'm a lot nicer now, aren't I? I'm a God. Oh my God, yes. So it was many times in some of the schools of acting at that time. It was if you could take the actor and really rip them apart and leave them most egoless. you need an on and off switch so that you don't, screw your life up. And I embrace that to this day.
Yeah.
You step into character right the moment before they say action, and when they say cut, you take a moment or two, and then you step out of character. I'm not a huge fan of these people who claim to live it for 3 or 4 or 5 months, because I can tell you this much: Daniel Day-Lewis, as much as he may want to be Abraham Lincoln all that time,
Yeah.
if he were playing a serial killer, he's not out killing people. Hopefully, so there's a certain part of you that knows that this is repent.
I know, it's crazy.
If he were playing a brain surgeon, he's not operating in the operating rooms, on his days off. So, acting is acting. It is we get paid to pretend and to make it real as best we can. And some people are really, really, really good at it. Some people aren't so good at it. But either way, a lot of people work, and that's a good thing. And it's entertaining. So.
Yeah, crazy. Now, according to IMDb, and we know how inaccurate IMDb can be at times, you were a production manager and assistant editor on Black Fist.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that come about for you?
In 1974, I think it was, I went to Wisconsin to work on a film called Things in Their Season that starred Ed Lauder and, I forget, Patricia Neal, who became a friend of mine. It was so cool. I got to work closely with Patricia Neal.
Yeah.
Sam Christensen was the casting director. He later cast MASH, and sadly passed away a few years ago, as many do, unexpectedly. I mean, I love Sam. We had fallen out of touch and then reconnected, and I would see him in Los Angeles. We would talk on the phone. He'd been on my show a couple of times, and then one day he went off to somewhere else. And but Sam brought me in. I flew to Wisconsin. I was there 6 weeks working on it, and I worked mostly production. I got, they threw me in as an extra. Originally, I was there to act.
Yeah.
I ended up extra. I was like a town person or whatever. But I worked as craft service. I worked as props, and I worked as something else. I don't remember. And I was the youngest guy on the set with all these old timers who just, movie crews can be quite vicious. So they were always pranking me and telling me I was screwing up and, making life as miserable as it could for me. Because, you got to grow some if you're going to work with these kind of guys. It's kind of, I guess, like being a cowboy. You have to be able to ride the horse and deal with everything else. So I did that movie, and I came back, and there was an ad in what was then called the drama log. And the drama log at those days was just a folded piece of colored paper, like whatever, 20-pound paper, and mimeographed or copied or whatever. And then I think it sold for $0.25 or whatever, around Hollywood.
Yeah.
Later it became a glossy magazine. So I went to the studio. I walked in. I walked into the office to be interviewed for production manager. I said, "You need me. I will do a job for you. You need me." And they said, "Okay, we do." And they hired me, and I'm like, sight on the scene. And they said, "All right, well, yeah, absolutely. So here's the script. Go home, read it, and we start production, whenever." So I went home. I read the script. It was called Dante Shocko. It was written by Steve Lubetkin, who sadly,
Oh, yeah.
around 1980 or so, left off the Hyatt building into trying to hit the Comedy Store parking lot, but missed
Yeah.
during the commuting strike. But the script was funny. The movie was horrible. Well, I just posted on Facebook the other day, because they posted the thing of Ringo Starr and Gort and the whole thing at the top of the Capitol building. We were shooting during that day at the Knickerbocker Hotel, and out our window we could watch them trying to put the Ringo and the cord and the flying saucer around the Capitol, and it interfered with our shooting. But the movie turned out, I think, terrible. I sat in front of Steve during the premiere and just wanted to slink down into my seat.
Yeah.
Brought some friends down, like, "Oh my God, this is embarrassing." So fast forward, Black Fist had shot Black Fist, and they were trying to fix it, and they hired the director, who was Richard Kay, who directed Dante Shocko, who was one of the people who hired me for Dante Shocko.
Yeah.
So he called me up and said, "Would you work this?" And I said, "Sure." So we shot around L.A., and one of the coolest places we shot was at Louis B. Mayer's beach home, which was the West Coast White House, where John Kennedy had liaisons with Marilyn Monroe, and we shot in there.
Yeah.
And so you can see the interior. I think there's a billiard table inside and things like that. I don't remember much about the shoot. And then I had a part in that somewhere in it. I don't know if I'm in it or not in it. I don't know why I didn't get credited. And then I worked then in whatever that was. And I think it was 1977, I'm going to guess. He asked me if I would help him edit it. And so we were working in, I guess, I don't remember, Burbank or somewhere. And next to us was Deborah Hill. She was an editor, and I had met her on a movie called Goodbye Norma Jean, and she was visiting a basement and said, if I ever produce you as the first actor I am ever going to call. And I was like, well, that's really cool. Thank you very much. But when she did, whatever the movie was that made her a huge producer with Tony Curtis's kid,
Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah.
What was that movie? Right back with the movie, the horror flick that came.
Halloween.
You know. Huh?
Halloween.
Yeah, I think it was Halloween. When she produced it, she didn't call me, so the rest is history. Everybody else became, great with that, but I wasn't part of it. But I worked on Blacklist editing with Richard for quite some time, and then I got I think it was Our Town for NBC, and I had to go away for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And at that time, I said, "Whatever happened to Dante Chakra? What are you going to do with it?" He said, "Well, Steve's career looks like it's taking off, so we're going to wait for his career to pop, and then we'll release the movie." And I said, "Well, that's great." And then, of course, the rest is history. About 3 years later, Steve killed himself, and I lost touch with Richard somewhere after 84, 85, and a couple of years back, I tried to reach out and find out where he was, and somebody, after a whole lot of effort and research, and I finally found somebody who had worked with him, said, "Well, sadly, he passed away last year." And so but I liked Richard a lot. He was a really good guy. He loved me, and would hire me whenever he could, and believed in me, and he believed in Steve, and so. I miss him, and he's in Blacklist. You see him. I forget what part he plays, but he's one of the characters in the movie.
Yeah, that was probably one of the first X-rated blaxploitation movies too, right? Or maybe it wasn't, but it was like
I don't know that it was ever X-rated. To my knowledge, it wasn't.
Yeah, again, IMDb's inaccurate.
I've seen the film. I think it even plays on the IMDb. But I think I don't remember anything that would be X-rated at all about that movie. It might have been some nudity in it, but at worst, in the 70s, we did art movies. Nobody wanted to produce X-rated movies in the 70s.
Right.
Unless you were doing real porno, that was your business. It was similar. I knew Harry Reams.
Yeah.
Harry Reams, who had been in Deep Throat, I met him, and I said, how's it going? He said, I can't get arrested as an actor. I did Deep Throat because I thought it would help my career, and it killed my career. And maybe everything else, but he's like, nobody will have me. Now, it's different today. There's more, it's a changed business, and, people have broken through, but not that many. When you think about it, of all the porn stars out there, very, very few have become, mainstream actors and actresses.
Right. It's there's before the internet too, so people didn't know that much about porn in those days. So how does?
And it was a very dark industry. I had a girlfriend, a beautiful, beautiful girl who wanted to do porn. She wanted to do nudity in magazines and stuff, and she made me take her to a house on a Saturday morning somewhere again in the valley.
Yeah.
And they essentially booted me out. They're like, "You can't be here," and I was afraid to leave her alone. And she's like, "Just go." And her photos ended up in the Hollywood Free Press or something. One of these, at that time, you had news magazines, out in front of the stores that you could buy for 50 cents or $1. And she looked horrible. She was so devastated. They made her look so bad.
Yeah.
She was so gorgeous, but the way they lit her and everything, they made her look so sleazy. She was completely devastated. And I didn't want to say I told you so, and so I didn't. It wouldn't have served me anyway, or wouldn't have helped her. She got it. She understood.
Yeah, that could be sad. So how does Massacre at Central High come to you?
Well, Massacre at Central High, I think it was 1976. I think we shot it in February. So in the end of 75, my agent called me and said, I have an audition for you, you have to go to the director's home. And he gave me the address, and so, you know, in those days, you didn't have GPS either. You just had to find it. So it's in the Hollywood Hills. I find the place, I park, I go in. It's probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I'm told that I'm going to wait. He's busy with someone, and I can see him in another room. He's actually with Kimberly Beck, who played one of the lead characters. I didn't know Kim at the time, but he was talking with her. So I sat down with my portfolio with Bert Van Munster, who's, you know, known now for The Great Race and tons of shows, but he was the DP at the time, the cinematographer. And so he said, well, let me see, you know, your portfolio. So I give him the thing. He's like, oh my God, this is great. And that was just, you know, pictures of me from things. And so Renee came out, and Renee Galder, who directed it, and Bert said, oh, you have to look at this. He goes, no, I don't need to look at that. I can see what I'm looking at. You know, he said, well, he's so cinematic, he's, you know, and photogenic or whatever. And I never felt that way at all. You know, I mean, I was like, this was news to me. And Renee's like, well, whatever, I don't need that. So Renee ends this thing with Kim says her up and says, okay, talk to me. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell to say. So I said, you got a nice view.
Yeah.
And he said, look, you know, I mean, he was like, really, like, I'm busy here. You know, talk to me, tell me about yourself. I said, you've got a nice view. So he's like, you know, for 30 seconds, talk to me. I said, I told you got a great view. He said, okay, you can go. I pack up my stuff, Bert says goodbye. I leave, I drive back. It's probably December, so, you know, it's dark by about 5 o'clock. I get home, and I get into my apartment. The phone is ringing, and I answer it. And it took me, this was from Beechwood, and I was living in Los Feliz, so it probably took me a half hour during rush hour traffic or something to get home. And I get home, and the phone is ringing, and it's my agent going, get back there, they want to see you. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And he goes, no, get back there. So I drive back to Renee's house. I get there hour later. He says, here, I want you to read these. It's 3 parts, I think it was. Probably Harvey and maybe Dennis Court's part, which was not Oscar, but Arthur. And Rodney, I think, is what he had me read.
Yeah.
So I went in the other room, and I started looking at this stuff, and he's like, you know, are you done? And I go, yeah. So I come out, and he goes, read with me. So I think I read Rodney. I think that's all I read. And he goes, okay. And I said, now what? He goes, you got the part. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, you got the part. I said, okay, great. And he says, you can go. Tell your agent. Tell your agent will call. So I shoot down the other side of the hill, and I stop at Canyon Hills, which is at the corner of Ventura and Laurel Canyon, and I call up my agent. And I go, hey, I got the part. He goes, yeah, we'll see. They tell it to everybody. You know, I don't believe it till you. Yeah. Well, then, sure enough, I did get the part. And I think in January we met somewhere in Sunset, not far from Schwaz, or, you know, east of, you know, here, not far from the Screen Actors Guild, some you know, some offices building at the time. And so we met, and that's when they cast Jeffrey Winter as Oscar. It was the first cast meeting. They had not cast Jeffrey yet. So Jeffrey came in with some other guy. They both went into another room. The other guy left, you know, and Jeffrey came out, and he tried to cast.
Yeah.
I guess in January, and I think we began filming in February. And we all were very tight. We would go to House of Pies up in the Vermont, hang out. Andrew Stevens bought me my first glass or shot of Cavassier, and I shoot it like a shot. No, you're supposed to snap that. That's just sifting stuff. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But we all became very tight, and I loved Rainbow, who sadly passed away, and Lonnie Grady, who sadly passed away. We all went to the premiere when it opened at the Pacific, which is no longer there in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize about that movie is it played for a year, every day for a year in France. We had, you know, there was no internet, so we didn't know, but we had huge fans all in different parts of the world that we never got to know about because, you know, nobody in the United States gave a crap about what was going on in France. And then Roger Ebert loved it, and the New York Times, I think, or one of them, it was like the top 10 or 20 films, and Ebert loved Massacre such a lot.
Nice.
So we all went to the premiere, and we saw it. I think John Logan and I went somewhere and saw it, you know, and we were just swamped by people who saw us coming out of the theater. I mean, it was amazing. Massacre was this little movie that we had done, and I thought it was kind of corny and stupid and not that good, kind of thing. And we were swamped by people wanting our autographs. But it was like, wow, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was very nice, but it was confusing because I was like, it's not like I don't know who, like, it's not like I'm Jack Nicholson or somebody, wasn't Nicholson at the time. It's not like I'm Robert Redford. Why you have my autograph? I'm just in this little movie, but they do. They did. That was amazing.
That's awesome. Now, you said that you thought it was a goofy movie. It was pretty bold, though, at the time, though, because this was pre-Columbine, I think Carrie had just come out. That was like the only other horror movie that explored teen bullying.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if, I don't know. I don't know if Carrie was first or second. I mean, I haven't looked. I never thought about it that way, but I remember going to Carrie when it opened, but I couldn't tell you if that was before or after Massacre, to be honest.
Yeah.
I grew to like Massacre because when there were Damon, who sadly has passed away, and Ray Underwood passed away. He was the first to go back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Damon I saw, within a year of his death. Lonnie and I and Rainbow hadn't seen each other in a couple of years prior to their dying. So out of 13 cast members, I guess there's like 9 of us left. And I think Bond has left the business. But Damon, so many of them didn't like their line. I'm not going to say that. That's a stupid line. And whether it was, I think it was just unintentional. I think that Rene wrote the way he wrote because that's how he understood language. But what he did, they were commissioned to make it. The movie came about as a thing of like, make me a teenage movie with 8 deaths in it or whatever that amount of deaths. It's kind of an exploitation film.
Yeah.
So he scripted this thing, and we get the script, and a lot of people were trying to rewrite their lines, and I always thought that I never did, but it appears that Daryl and I did adjust the lines. I found the script many years later, and I've since lost it, but where I have notes that we penciled in different lines for he and I when we were doing the scene where I throw the rock through whoever car it was, Bruce's car or whatever, and you're talking about the turning of the tides, and hey pal, kind of thing,
Yeah.
If you and me team up, David and Rodney get together, we can really turn the tide. And Rene hated the movie for 35 years. Now he and I worked for over 10 years to get it re-released, and gladly it is, and has been, but a long time to get it released. Once Columbine happened, people didn't want to watch it. They didn't want to see it. I did another movie like that. It was called Killer's Matinee that was about me. I go into the movie theater. I shoot a bunch of people in the theater who were making noise. It was a little short, one of my favorite pieces of film, but they pulled that from wherever it was playing and took it off because of, subsequently later, people would do that. It's silly stuff. It's weird that they never pulled like Dirty Harry or that stuff, but they seem to pull my movie.
Yeah.
But Massacre, Rene hated it. He was mad because they put the song that was Kim's stepfather, I believe, that Tommy and Leonetti wrote the music, and Rene didn't like the music. He had something by Blue Oyster Cult or original music that he wanted to play, and he didn't like the spoilers in the beginning, and they cut that way and took the print, and made it what it was.
Yeah.
So about, I'm going to guess 10 years ago or so, he was invited to New York. They were doing a Renee Dalder retrospective, and one of the movies was going to be Massacre, and he called me up and said, I don't know if I want to go, and I said, well, just go. You need to know that you have fans, because I kept trying to tell him, there are fans all around the world, and he wouldn't believe me. So he went to New York. He was mobbed. He was so well received. People told him how much they loved Massacre. He told them he wanted to re-release the print with new music, and they said, no, you can't do that. You have to keep it the same. So when he got back from New York, he called me up, and he said, I can't believe this. He said, maybe I've been wrong for 35 years,
Yeah.
And I said, you have been wrong for 35 years. It has its own charm. People love the movie, and people want to see it. And so we then worked hand in hand for many years trying to get it released. and we would get close, and it would get cold, and it would get close again, and then it was not, and then it was, and finally the release came about, and sadly he died before it happened. I mean, in very weird circumstances, in that Daryl was trying to go to Amsterdam with his new bride, and he called me up and said, know where Renee is right now. And he said, well, he was living over here, but I think he moved. And he did. He moved very close to where we shot the original Massacre Central, where we interviewed at his home in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
And it was around New Year's, a couple of years back, and Daryl showed up, knocked on the door, and said, I'm looking for Renee. And then someone said, Daryl, and he went, and it was Renee's daughter. And she told him that Renee had passed away just like days before.
Yeah.
And so we just missed him, but he had apparently been suffering from debilitating things. The last phone calls that I had were very confusing. I wasn't sure what was going on with it, but I knew that there was something that was different about it, something that was concerning. And then he went dark, and so I didn't, from whatever the last call was, which was probably a few months, maybe 6 months before he died or something like that. We didn't have any contact, and then learned that he had passed.
Wow. Yeah.
He sent it through to the area to speak with me. Originally, I was going to do the bangs and whistles. I was going to do the interviews because I got my show at the zoo, but Rex Steven Movie. And so I was going to do that, and then they said, well, maybe they'd like somebody else to do that. So they came and interviewed me, and then I put them in touch with Daryl. I don't know who they all interviewed. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've got like those producers, who actually interviewed me sent me a copy of the re-released Blu-ray, and I haven't yet watched it. But we recorded for something like 3 hours, and I'm sure we had to cut together an interview with me. I suggested Daryl and put them in contact with Daryl.
Yeah.
Put him in contact with Andrew and Bobby. I don't know if they got him. Tom Logan, who played Harvey. Dennis Gordon has been almost unreachable for many, many years. We intersected once or twice. Jeffrey Winter, I put them in touch with Jeffrey. And then the rest, had passed away. So who they ultimately ended up interviewing, I don't know. And also, sadly, I had always wanted Renee on my show, and Renee kept saying, well, maybe someday I'll do it. And I do. And we did. But on my show, I did have Daryl and Jeff. I don't think I had Tom. I had Andrew. But at any rate, kind of talking about it. And then I also orchestrated a review in Hollywood. We met over at a burger place with Sunset Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Jeff and Daryl and myself and Renee. And Jeff Dial, Peter Dial, who had been a makeup artist at Massacre Central. He's a producer now, and prior to that, he was a child star. He was actually up for Burt Ward's role in Batman when Burt Ward got it.
Oh, yeah.
Burt Ward got it. So through the years, Massacre has kind of followed me around, and then I got actively involved in trying to get it re-released. I'm not any part of that re-release other than we worked very hard to get it going, and then somebody did it and made whatever deals with Renee or whoever, and now it's out. So one of these days I'll watch it.
I met Robert Carradine a couple of years ago. He is such a genuine, authentic guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah, no, I was called Bobby, and we haven't talked in many, many years. And a few years back, I was back in Hollywood. I go back and forth. My kids are in the Midwest, or were in the Midwest, so I raised them here, and I would go back and forth to home in L.A. and go back and forth. And I went back for the first time in, a long time around Christmas and New Year's. So I was out there at that time, and I got together with my good friend, this pinch runner from General Hospital, Scotty Baldwin, and Delta Bernari. And we got together, in the Valley for Coffee. And I ran into Bobby last night, and I think at the Rainbow or something. And then I was like, oh, crap, that's so cool. And then the next day, right after that, they'd run into Bobby somewhere else, and I wasn't there, and I didn't do the thing. And then I'm supposed to go to, every year I get this invite to a friend of mine's New Year's party, And that New Year's, I'm there to be able to do it. I'm actually in town and able to do it, and I didn't get the invite. And I didn't think about it. So I thought, well, I'm just going to stay in on New Year's. And I stayed in on New Year's. I got up New Year's Day, and everybody went, oh, yeah, we went over to Gary's last night and had a seat. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I can't believe I missed it.
Yeah.
I think Bobby was there, too. So it was like 3 days in a row I missed Bobby Carey, and I haven't seen him in many years. But he always was a genuinely nice guy. I always did like Bobby. I'll tell you what I did. When we were doing the movie, we thought Bobby was like the worst actor ever. And I think that Bobby actually is the best actor in the entire movie, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah.
He's the most conversational, he's the most natural, he's the most laid back. He exemplifies the stoner kind of person that he was supposed to be playing, Spoonie. But we did a scene together where we took like 17 takes while he was trying to get out. Oh, yeah, what was the line? Something like a genuine Detroit gas guzzler where we're walking through the hallway and he stopped me or something, and I was like, it can't be that difficult to say this line. But Bobby was great. I mean, and he went on to much career success, so more power to him. And his brothers were great. David.
I've talked to David's daughter, Callista. She said that Bobby's her favorite uncle. Yeah.
Yeah, Callista's a friend of mine. I haven't talked to her in some years, but I love Callista.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
Ever?
Oh, yeah. Ever Carradine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very talented family. Martha Plimpton, who's Keith's daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
Do you have a favorite kill in the movie?
A favorite kill?
Yeah.
I honestly think that the best kill was Damon Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Paul. What's his name? Paul in the thing?
Yeah.
He's in the van. And I like that, and I like Ray's, where he crashes into the what do you call it?
The diving board?
Huh?
Talk about the diving board kill?
No, that's Steve Bond, and that was okay. I mean,
that's my favorite.
No, Andrew Stevens broke my nose right before we shot the scene where we discover his body.
Oh, wow.
We were rehearsing it, and I say, something, I discovered it or whatever. And Tom Logan says, to think yesterday he was so full of life, and Andrew goes to grab him, and he ended up reverse cocoa butting me in the face with his head, and it just crushed my nose.
Wow.
15 minutes before we were to shoot. So the makeup guy, Peter, grabs me and throws me in a chair with his fist, clamping my nose. They're trying to stop the bleeding, and one of the producers walks up and goes, do you have a history of bloody nose? I'm like, get the F out of here. I'm like, what kind of question is that? You want to know if we're going to shoot the scene? He goes, no. I have a history of bloody noses. I was just wondering. And I'm like, oh, okay. And sorry. And they stopped the bleeding, and I stood up and we shot the scene. And I don't know if you see it or not, but I tried to make sure that Andrew was nowhere near me when that happened.
Yeah, same thing happened. Bill Murray broke Robert De Niro's nose on a movie called Mad Dog Glory. I don't know how it happened, but similar thing happened there. Yeah.
And because you shoot a movie out of sequence, I have in some shots a broken nose, and some shots I don't. And I don't know if you would know it if you didn't know it, but or if you hadn't heard what I just said. But I sure could tell.
Yeah, I watched part of the movie yesterday. I couldn't finish it because I was doing something else and stuff. But next time I watch it, I will look out for that. You mentioned.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. I was just gonna say it was fun. We all were very tight. Tom Logan and I are in touch to this day, and Jeff Winter and I are in touch to this day. Daryl Morey and I are in touch to this day. Steve Bond and I haven't spoken in a while, but he left the business and I think went into real estate.
Yeah.
And we spoke a number of years back. Andrew and I have been, and I'll tell you a cute story about Andrew and I. Andrew was writing a book and asked me if I would review it. He was writing on directing movies and producing movies, and so I was looking at his book and making comments and kind of operating as an unofficial editor. And And I go back to Los Angeles, and I'm going to meet a friend of mine, Gabriel Ferrer, Miguel Ferrer's family, the Rosemary Clooney, George Clooney, everybody. I mean, they were all friends of mine. I grew up with them. Bill Mooney, Davy Jolliffe, Sean Cassidy. I mean, we all hung out together. So I'm going to get together. Miguel had not yet passed away, if I remember right, and was living out of town. And I called up Gabrielle, and we were going to meet for breakfast. And we were going to meet at a deli over on Van Nuys. Like, the name escapes me now. It's no longer there. They tore it down. But I had just eaten there the day before with Sam Christensen, as a matter of fact, and another friend of mine, Bruce, who is a script supervisor who's in movies. I can't chase. And I forget, and a couple other people, and we met there and had a marvelous time. So I called up Gabrielle. I said, I know we're supposed to meet at like 11 o'clock or something like this. Could we change the location? And he said, yeah, let me think about it for a while. And then he called back and said, could we meet at like noon? And I said, yeah, that's great. He suggested Marmalade on Ventura and Sherman Oaks. I said, great, that's good. Well, let's go there. So I pull up at noon. I get a parking spot right in front of the place. I walk in. I said, yeah, a table for two. They said, we have one. And they went and sat me down immediately. And next to me, they were busing a table for two that was not clean at the time. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and in walks this guy and sits down next to me, opposite me. So if I look a little bit to my right, it's Andrew Steven. And Andrew, we look at each other and go, oh my God, and I'm like, are you here? Are you here now? And he's like, no, I just came in for the weekend. I'm meeting the editor of that book here in a little bit. And so we started, conversing and talking about stuff. And then Gabrielle comes in. And I didn't know that Gabrielle and Andrew knew each other, but Gabrielle and Andrew have known each other for years. And we've all been friends and not knowing that you don't know who all of your friends are.
Right.
And so we're all like conversing, and then the editor with another person came in, and so they did their thing, and we did ours. But that was the first time I saw Andrew in person in many, many years. And we talked on the phone. Ken Schreiner and I and he have been friends for many years. Ken met him after, I had done Massacre Central High, but they became, pretty tight friends. And so it's just amazing how small the world is and how interesting it was that had I gone to the original place, we wouldn't have met. And had Gabrielle not moved the appointment from 11 to noon and to that restaurant, we wouldn't have met. So, in all the universe, all the world, our paths were meant to cross that day. So, very cool.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned before, Goodbye Norma Jean. Do you have a Misty Rose story?
I do. I used to see Misty afterwards on the set of When Things Were Rotten that she starred in, and then she went to Hee Haw.
Yeah.
She was a really, really nice person, and when we were shooting the scene from there, that actually was the movie that got me into SAG, and in order to do that, they had to tell SAG that I was the only person who could play this part out of all the actors in the Screen Actors Guild, and they had to tap Hartley me. So I think it was around the end of 74 or the beginning of 75. I don't remember exactly. And so I got the part, and they made me cut my hair, and it bothered the crap out of me because I had to look like I was in the 40s.
Yeah.
And Misty and I worked together. So I'm supposed to be this masher in a movie theater, tries to grab her and molest her.
Yeah.
And when we were done with the scene, she said, "I really want to thank you." And I said, "Why?" She said, "The guy I worked with yesterday is supposed to maul me, and he really mauled me. I'm bruised, I'm banged up, I was hurt and injured." She said, "You at least know how to act and make it look real without actually hurting me."
Good. She gave me brownie points there.
Yeah, so that, I guess, that won me brownie points, and we were friends. After that, we would visit and talk. She was always very nice, and she became a big star. And I haven't seen her or talked to her in many, many years. Just always wished her well, and she was great.
Yeah.
That movie totally was loathed because it didn't make Marilyn Monroe out to be. It was supposed to be the back. It was alleged or purported to be, the real story of Marilyn behind the scenes. And I don't know that any of that's true or not. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I've tried getting her on the show, but it's been pretty tough. But you played an Israeli soldier in Raid on Entebbe.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I just one of many in that regard.
Yeah.
Kind of a featured thing. And I don't even remember where he did that. Was it Universal? I remember it. And another friend of mine was in it too, and I don't know whatever happened to him. He and I actually ended up working together in that, and Jesus.
Yeah. I heard Irving Kershner was a tough director.
It's an amazing thing. I don't remember much of that experience because most of what we were doing, I guess we were more like glorified extras than anything. I mean, we had scenes, but it was mostly troop stuff. I mean, you get a shot, you get a line, that kind of thing, and then you're running around a lot and
Right.
so tough. No, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't tough for me that day, or the days that we worked, but it was, so I can't answer that. I hadn't worked with them otherwise before or since.
You had a role in the Coming Attractions movie spoof Flicks.
I did. I was the director called me up. He knew me from Lillian's class, and he it'll be his first movie. And he called me up and said, "I have a part for you, and it's one day." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He goes, "You wrestle a giant insect. You beat up a giant insect." I said, "I'm in. I sounds like great. Sounds like fun." It turned out that I ended up working weeks on the movie, which was great. I mean, it made a lot of money. And that one day became, I was on hold, and they didn't. I wasn't converted to a weekly contract. This is meaningless to most people, but you have a daily contract or a weekly contract. Well, they kept me as a daily contract, and so they had to pay me whether I worked or not every day for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it was amazing, and just one of those lucky days, one of those lucky times. The movie was fun. I got to work with a lot of people, and when I wasn't working with them, I got to hang around with them. But the person who was at the time, nobody was Bill Paxton was on that movie. He was just a carpenter, and then of course became a big star.
Oh yeah.
And he was just an incredible person. Just one of the crew members kind of thing. But he was a really good guy. I tend to hang around with crew or extras more than I hang around with cast whenever I can.
Good.
Well, it depends on the cast. I mean, there was a time in Massacre at Central High where we were filming. It was, I think, Calabrini High School. It was out in, again, Burbank. It was a high school where we shot the interiors and of Central High. And we were outdoors, and it was raining. And they had tents and everything set up for the cast, but nothing for the extras. I went and sat with the extras. I was like, fuck that. Excuse my language.
It's okay. You can swear.
Well, thank you. But I mean, to me, these people are just as important. And people don't understand it. If I were living every day in Hollywood right now, I'd do extra work every chance I could. When I was growing up in Hollywood doing acting, at the time, then it was frowned upon in Hollywood. In New York, it was you do extra work until you become a big star. In Hollywood, like, you're either an actor, a SAG actor, or you're an extra. You aren't both, and you should never do extra work. That was until SAG merged. And then we had, 2 unions. We had Screen Actors Guild and AFTER. So AFTER were things like Archie Bunker's Place and different shows that he did on tape, or live audience shows. And then the single camera shows, or movies, were Screen Actors Guild. Of course, then they merged a few years back. But right now, I would do extra work any chance I got because you're on a set. You get to hang out with other people. You may intersect with, cast or crew, but heck, where can you go, make some money, eat a lunch, and read a book most of your day?
Yeah.
And then go, see, there I am in that movie. There I am in the that support teams. I always never wanted to be a feature extra because if you're a feature extra, and I've not done much extra work ever in my life, if you're a feature extra, they don't need you ever again because you now have shared the screen with one of the cast members. Now you're a known commodity. So if you really want to make it as an extra, you make it so you're not observable, and then you'll work all the time because you're one of a crowd. But you have to sell it. If you're running from a building, if the building's going to blow up, or if you're, look at gangs in New York. I mean, the whole story's like The Exorcist watch that Scorsese movie, you go, oh my goodness, if it weren't for these extras, the movie wouldn't be that impressive.
Exactly, yeah. So did it get to a point where acting was too much hassle and you got behind the camera and you enjoyed it more?
No, it's funny because I worked crew, in a bunch of different movies, and I hated it when I was young. I didn't want to do it. I kind of did it out of necessity, except, of course, I did it when I walked into Richard and Steve's office as the union's production manager. I just wanted to act. I just all I wanted to do was act, but I discovered around '76, prior to Rocky, I wrote a screenplay with somebody else, and we worked to get it produced, and we got about a week for pre-production, and everything fell apart. I mean, it just totally fell apart. I had become the wonder kid of Hollywood. I was 23 years old, and everybody would see me because the script got around, and there was a buzz over the script, there was a buzz over what we were doing, and everything else. The day that the thing fell apart, it was like every door in Hollywood slammed shut. It was like, come see me when you have a project again. And I go, well, hire me as an actor. They say, well, I thought you were a producer. And I go, well, then I've been produced to act. They go, okay, well, whatever. It's that old story of you're only as good as your last project, and my project fell apart. So suddenly I was nothing. I was nobody, And I had to do it over again. And I thought, you know what? I'm tired of banging my head against the door. Against four walls. I'm trying to produce, I'm trying to write, I'm trying to act, I'm looking at direct, I'm trying to finance things, I'm tired of that. I just want to act. Well, just things kept coming about where people wanted me to help them get a project going here or there, and I discovered that I actually liked it, that it was a different experience. As an actor, if you're, and this is advice anyway, I'll tell them that, you have to understand your part in the story, because you're telling a story, and it's not about you, unless, of course, you're the lead, and it is about you. But for the most part, if you're in a TV show and you're on page 27 or page 4, and you just have one scene, or you have 3 scenes, or you've got 3 scenes for the show, you have to go, what is it about me? And most of the time in a television show, the peripheral characters are there just to further the story. So if somebody shows up and tells the lead detective, oh my God, what's going on in that house? You got to go look at it, and that's your role. You don't have a big part. Well, most actors think, oh my God, this is my opportunity. I'm going to be seen. I'm going to get hired. I'm going to work. This is great. I have a career, and that's not going to be the case. I was auditioned for a show. I would play the show. Well, let's just say it was one of Big Wolf's shows that's currently in production. So I went on this audition, and my agent sent out this mailer, and so you would see your name and the role that you're playing, and whether you're doing one show or 2 shows or 3 shows, or if you have 1 scene or 2 shows or 3 shows. So I got this script, and I had 1 scene, and I'm playing a warden against the 2 leads in the show. And apparently the warden and the 2 leads know each other, And you can't blow an audition. You can't suck intentionally, but I didn't want to get it. I was like, I saw somebody else, and they had 3 scenes and 3 shows, and I'd rather save, because if you work for people once, you don't work again for 2 years. I mean, you can't cross the shows unless you're, a named star and things like that. So there's a kind of little weird political thing in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want the job, but I can't blow the audition. So you have to do a good audition. So I did the audition. And then I got a call back, so now I had to wait that day for 3 or 4 hours and then come back in and meet the director. And so I did the audition. And I didn't get it. And I was so relieved, because, well, when I saw the show, and I just happened to catch the show, the guy that got the part, that he went home, he said, I got this part, I'm with the 2 leads. Everybody watched, whatever night it was on. So here's how it unfolds. They're walking up the stairs. You see this guy's back. He walks into the room. He's blurred as he crosses the room because they cut back to the 2 stars. He sits down. They cut back to him. He says he may have 2 or 3 lines, but he says half of a line. They cut back to him, and everything else is on the stars. So his entire screen time was maybe 6 seconds. Mm-hmm. Now he got his $1,000 or whatever it costs to do that, but now he can't work for a year. Or 2 years. And it's not a career move. I mean, in other words,
Yeah.
But but what I'm getting at is you do that to be a valued member of the thing. So he did his job. He did it right. He got his pay. He left. How they cut it and whatever has nothing to do with him. And he probably works other things all the time, and that's great. But the person who thinks I'm going to be a star and then acts like a star on the set is the person who they're going to go, we don't need this person. Let's never hire that guy again or that gal. You have to understand that in that case, what I'm saying, I said earlier, is the information that was being passed by this one scene was so that the stars could run with it and it furthered the story. It's not a career move, not a career star-making move. It's to further the story, and actors need to understand the difference between, like a cameo, because you're a celebrity, and a career-making scene, like, what's his name? That played in Beverly Hills Cop. Serge.
Oh, Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah, I mean, that was a career-making, he got a TV series of it and everything else. That was the moment where it worked his favor, and he was such a brilliant actor.
Yeah.
In that. But that so rarely happens. So you got to know your place. And you got to be a good person. You got to be somebody they want to have on the set. I always tell people, if you work in the movie and you're a crew or your cast member, think of it like somebody's invited you to go on camping. You're either the person that they always want to take along, or you're the person that they don't want to take along. So, make yourself the person that they want to include.
Yeah, that's very good advice. How did Rex Sikes' movie beat come about?
I had always wanted a mentor when I was in Hollywood. I wanted somebody to tell me, stop this stupid stuff and do this instead. You're boneheaded here. You don't know what you're doing. Stop being a dick and start being the. And I couldn't find one, try as I may. Lillian was like that, but I just, anyway, so I wanted to do a show that was like, here's what to do and here's what not to do. And I've been teaching and training. I've been teaching acting. I train personal and professional development programs. I have online workshops and books and products, for people at rexsikes.com. So if you want to know, that's my website. It's rexsikes.com. And you can go there. It's not the acting stuff there, but it's personal transformation stuff. And those are the two arenas that I've been in all of my life: acting and film business, and helping people live their dreams and reach their goals. And so I wanted to do a show that helped actors and filmmakers know what to do and what not to do, because both are equally important. You need to know how to navigate a career, and you need to know what not to do to screw your career up. I also taught at the university here in Wisconsin, at the University of Milwaukee for a while, and that's what they asked me to do. They said, just do your show. Teach people how to have a career, how to network, and how to be successful. And so I did the show. Originally, I wanted to do it on camera, but in those days, back in 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, it didn't exist. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have the technology. I didn't want to be flying back and forth to California or hiring film crews and doing the whole thing. So I made it a podcast. I made it, something that people could listen to, and I did it on Blog Talk Radio at the time. Mm-hmm. And people said that they preferred it that way. It was amazing. People said I could listen to it in the car. I could actually listen to it at work. If it were TV, I'd have to watch it for whatever reason. Now we have Zoom, and you can watch it at Zoom, or you can watch, or you can listen to the podcast. So either works. But back then, I was so impressed that people like this audio format. I've done over 600 hours. Mm-hmm. Some shows were an hour, some were 2 hours. They're about 440 episodes or something like that. And I still have to do more. I still do it, but I do it sporadically. At one time, I did as many as 8 shows in a week, or I did, 2 or 3 shows a week. And I loved it, and I tried to make it everybody behind the scenes and actors. And I didn't want to make it where I was talking to like Steven Spielberg, because that's a rare exception for how successful you can be. I wanted it to be the people who are in the trenches, that it's more like the kind of job that I would get or you would get, or with all due respect, that most of us would find. And then if you became a star or became a star director, that would be, a whole different thing. And again, A-listers all the way down to not that famous people. And it's been very well received through the years, and I'm always pleased to do it. I now do a show called All Things Rex for the Los Angeles Tribune.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done 6 episodes. The 7th episode will stream live this Thursday. And my very first show was with Maggie Avila, who is the director, but she's also an actress on a show with Danny Trejo on, I believe, Amazon Prime. And she did a documentary called Altitude, Not Attitude, about Michael Workington, who at 23, he was a surfer who was paralyzed in a 3-story fall and lived the rest of his life as a quadriplegic, but he decided not to let that stop him. And he goes around the world, he's traveled to 26 different countries. He's a financial advisor. He's an entrepreneur. He's made money. But he's more than that. He's got the attitude of a winner. And he said, it's important to have fun in life. And so I can't, use my legs or my arms or the hands the way other people do. I can still do good in the world. And so he goes around trying to make people do good, help people do good. I also am on Clubhouse, and I've got a show coming up on Sunday in my room, which is a daily room called the Gratitude Activator. It's in the mornings at Clubhouse. We're going to have Carla Berkowitz, who's the executive producer of a movie called Critical Thinking, starring John Leguizamo, and about chess. And so we're going to have her talk about the movie, and I also do other episodes of Rex Sikes Movie Meet. The most recent were Rod Lurie and Todd Robinson, because they both did movies. War movies. Todd's was Last Full Measure, and now Rod Lurie is going to never forgive me for this. His movie was written by Jake Tapper, the guy on CNN.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of the name of his movie right now. But so those were like the last couple of episodes that I did. I did a lot. I shot a movie a couple of years back called Shooting Star. I worked with Michael Pare. And Peter Sharayko, the director, is Michael Pfeiffer.
Wow.
Michael does tons of movies, and so that is yet to come out. And just a great cast and just a great crew. It was really fun, and so I'm eager for when that's released.
Wow, you are a Renaissance man, Rex. You really are.
I love this business. I love people, and people, whether they're starting out or in the kind of the golden years, they can do. We can all do so many impressive things. The very fact that you're doing what you're doing and making my words available to people and other people's words and connecting people up with people that they might not otherwise have that opportunity is amazing. It's incredible, and more power to you. I am so honored to be here, and I'll continue to do what I do as long as I can do it. I have never thought about retiring from anything, because it's about love and passion, and it's all good. So I'm thrilled to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure, sir. One last thing I wanted to ask you. How did you go from Steven to Rex?
Good question. My dad's name was Rex, and so they always called me Steve, so there wouldn't be any confusion. So when I first joined SAG, I joined as Steve Sikes, because that's what I was called. Mm-hmm. And between 79 and 80, I got to thinking, well, there was another actor, and I'm going to massacre this, but my dad had a friend in Missouri whose son moved to Hollywood and became an actor, and I'm going to guess that his name was Bill or Bob Beach. And when he got out there was a Bill or Bob Beach, as I recall, so he changed it to his brother's name, Jim. Then Jim wanted to be an actor, so Jim moved out and became an actor, but he couldn't use his name because his brother had taken it, so he had to change his name. And then I think the third brother moved out. So all the Beach Boys, not the band, but these brothers, were using the names of their brothers instead of their real names. And so I went, maybe I better put Rex in there in case somebody goes lines as the Rex Sikes. So I just used Rex and then my middle name and my last name. And it created no shortage of confusion for a lot of people at the time.
Yeah.
But now everybody calls me Rex, and I don't even think about it. I haven't been called Steve in so long. If somebody says Steve to me, I'm just almost like, what? Who's that?
Yeah. Well, Rex, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I am glad you got a lot of projects going on and stuff. You have yourself a great day, and please stay safe.
I mean, you too, and thank you so much. And let me know how I can share this and how I can help you extend your work because you got such a great show and such a great offering, and I really do appreciate it. You stay safe. Stay safe where you are, and if you have to leave where you are to find other safe place, but stay safe and well. And I always say this, if you consider everything a blessing, then everything is a blessing. So celebrate everything and have a great day. And thank you.
My
Thank you. Thank you.
my pleasure, sir, and it is a blessing. Have a great day.
And likewise. All right. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Well, there you have it. Rex Steven Sikes. Ain't he a cool dude? Oh, wow. What a great guy and great stories. He truly is a Renaissance man, and I'm glad I got to talk to him today. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.